What's up, everybody? This is Ronnie from Smoking Ace Reviews. Today I want to do a little card trick for you. The card trick's called the Rich Man and the Porter. Made famous by Willie Nelson. That was where I had first seen it. I know there's many versions of this, but the version from Willie Nelson is probably my favorite. You can find it on YouTube. For those of you that have seen it, you know what's on the way. For those of you that haven't seen it, stay tuned. We're going to show you something pretty neat. Something that might blow your mind, something you may think stupid. I don't know. New deck in today, Bicycle Emotions. I'll be doing a review on those later on. But for this trick today, I'll be using the Hollywood Roosevelts from Theory 11. The court cards in this and the ace cards, the artwork on those really plays into this, I guess. Makes it more visually effective. So that's what we'll be doing. Like I said, stay tuned. Rich Man and the Porter is coming up. Okay, so here's one of my favorite tricks that I've ever seen. Made famous by Willie Nelson. That's where I seen it at, and I'm going to do it and show y'all what it's all about. Okay, so it's called the Rich Man and the Porter. So there was a rich man and a porter. And the rich man was staying in this fine hotel. He asked the porter, he said, man, he said, I like playing poker. He said, you know any guys that come play cards with me? And he said, well, boss man, I don't know. He said, I'll go see if I can find anybody. So the porter leaves. All right, go ahead and go. The porter leaves. He goes down one street, 2 streets, 3 streets, 4 streets, 5 streets, 3 houses. And the porter comes back. He says, well, boss man, he said, I found you some guys to play poker with. He said, 4 of them that think they're the kings of New York. And he said, well, he said, I appreciate it. He said, I tell you what, he said, there's your $2 tip. And he said, well, boss man, I appreciate that. He said, thank you. And he said, but I got a question. He said, how did you find those guys so quick? And he said, well, there's no problem. He said, I got friends on 6th Street, 7th Street, and 8th Street. And he said, oh. He said, well, all right, thank you. And he said, I tell you what, he said, what about some ladies? Do you think you can find us some ladies to keep us company while we're up here? He said, well, I don't know. He said, I can go check. So the porter leaves. Right, go ahead and come, will you? The porter leaves out. He goes down 1 street, 2 streets, 3 streets, 4 streets, 4 houses. The porter comes back. He says, well, boss man, he said, found you some ladies. He said, I hope you like them. He said, I found you 2 brunettes and 2 redheads.
Wow.
He said, well, thank you. He said, I tell you what, he said, there's your another $2 tip. And he said, but I still can't figure out. He said, you wasn't gone no time. He said, how in the world did you find them so quick? And he said, well, boss man, I told you I got friends on 6th Street, 7th Street, and 8th Street. And he said, well, that's amazing. He said, I sure do appreciate it. And he said, so the rich man tells the porter, he said, well, he said, you think you can find us some guys to wait on us while we're here to where we're not bugging you to death? The porter says, well, I should be able to. Said, I'll go see. All right, go ahead and go. So the porter leaves. He goes down 1 street, 2 streets, 4 houses, Porter comes back. He said, well, boss man, he said, got you some guys to wait on you. He said, there's some Cracker Jacks, but he said they should do whatever you need them to do. And he said, well, thank you. He said, I'll tell you what, there's another $2 tip. He said, well, thank you, boss man. He said, I appreciate it. He said, well, he said, you think you could find us some drinks and stuff while they're up here? And he said, well, I don't know why I couldn't. He said, should be able to find it around the corner. So, Porter leaves. Go ahead and cut him, wherever. And the Porter leaves. He goes down 1 street, 2 streets, 1 house. Porter comes back. And he said, well, boss man, he said, I found y'all some drinks. And he said, I just hope you like it. He said, found some bourbon. He said, I got you 4 fifths of Ace brand whiskey.
Wow.
He said, man, I appreciate it. He said, yeah, we like bourbon. He said, tell you what, there's another $2 tip. He said, well, thank you, I really appreciate it. And he said, but, you know, those guys that you got to play cards with, he said, you was right. He said, I know why they call them the Kings of New York. Said, I've lost some money to them. He said, do you think you could go get check cash for me? And he said, well, I don't know why I couldn't. He said, bank should still be open. He said, if not, I know where I can go. And he said, all right. He said, how much is your check? And he said, well, I got a $40 check. So the Porter leaves. Porter leaves. He goes down 1 street, 2 streets, 1 house. Porter comes back. And he said, well, boss man, he said, I got your check cash for you. He said, I hope 4 tens is okay. And he said, well, yeah, that's great. He said, you've been so good to me. He said, I'd like to give you a tip. He said, I'm going to give you a $10 tip this time. He said, is 2 5s okay? And he said, well, yeah, that's great. He said, I appreciate it. But he said, that's not necessary. He said, no, I want to do it for you. And he said, you know, come to think of it, he said, how old are you? And he said, well, boss man, I'm 46. And he said, well, you don't look that old. He said, you don't look a day over 35. He said, got any kids? He said, yes, sir, married. He said, I got 7 kids. He said, 4 boys and 3 girls. And he said, wow. He said, well, he said, you know, we could use another hand playing poker. He said, have you ever played poker? He said, well, I used to. He said, still do a little. He said, I'm a member of the 48 Club. He said, a little poker club we've got going. And he said, well, do you ever win? And he said, well, I quit gambling. And he said, why'd you quit gambling? And he said, because, he said, all I ever get's hands like these. And he said, you mean to tell me that you get 4 9s, 4 of a kind, and he said, you get beat? And he said, yeah. He said, because every time I do, he said, some lucky son of a gun comes up with a hand like this.
No way.
There you go, the rich man and the porter.